here we are. I
No, I
forgot whose
grabbed
chat this is again. I guess it's my show.
I grabbed the wrong intro, but it worked.
Yeah, I was gonna say, oh man, Garrett ain't singing that one.
That was a test intro I made a long time before we started this, and I forgot it was on there.
Yeah, well, I remember. We talked about we was gonna swap them around, but I like the one you sang so much that figured we keep it. But one of these days we'll have to do another song on there.
You wrote
All
a song,
right.
didn't you?
That's
You
funny.
wrote
I
a
was
song
sitting there
today.
this morning in bed and I read that, and that song just kind of popped into my head. And before I could get it all written down, it was right on back out again.
That's how it goes.
But I think I got enough of an idea how to kind of finish it out. But yeah, we'll have to do that one together here one of these days. So anyway, I want to welcome everybody back to the chat. So this is the Tales of the Trails once again. And once again, I don't have a topic because I've been busy as all get out. And I just didn't have a lot of time to do any reading up or any kind of research. The reading I've been doing here in the last week is I've been reading on the book Black Elk Speaks, which anybody's looking for some great first-hand account. It's a great book. It's really a great book. But anyway, those of you new here, we usually do this every other week. Little history chat. And Garrett is kind of the channel manager right now because I just not set up to really do videos or set up for even really doing much for live streams. But Garrett kind of reads off the comments there and keeps the chat going along. So I'm going to let him go ahead and read off and see what we got there.
All right, we've had between 15 and 20 already. It's jumping up and down, but we got William Slosser says Trails of the Tales. Diane Houston said, good evening, everyone. Stephen N. Mann said, Mountain Man in the house. And Kodak Tackman says, present. And Brandon Birch said, howdy, y'all rascals.
All right.
And that's it.
So, all righty. Yeah, well, like I said, I'm sorry I didn't have a topic again this week, so it's just going to be kind of an informal kind of a question and answer thing. One thing I was going to talk a little bit on, I don't know enough to really talk about it in depth, but today is 150 years ago that Wild Bill Hickok was killed in the number 10 saloon in Deadwood, South Dakota. And so, yeah, that popped up, which is why we had this song thing that Garrett was mentioning that I was putting together. That's why I was working on that. But yeah, 150 years ago that Wild Bill Hickok met his fate. And the whole Aces and Eights story came up, and whether or not that's actually the hand of cards he had, we'll never really know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yeah. So kind of what I've been doing here lately is trying to, still doing living history out there at work. We had a crew come out. It was 6 guys that did some living history out there at the fort. And they was portraying miners on their way to Pikes Peak. So, they're portraying miners in the late 1850s for the Pikes Peak or bust, the gold rush down there. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Getting ready to do some other big living history events coming up here in about 2 weeks. So, yeah, just been busy trying to get that done, trying to get some leather work done in between. I haven't been able to do a whole lot, but tomorrow I'm going to go buy a table so that I can get set up to where I can start actually getting some actual leather work done.
Yep. I think it's funny. It's usually about 10 minutes in. Sorry about that. Usually about 10 minutes in, I just get I got the announcement on my phone that we went live.
So what's funny is when 11 Bang Bang goes live, I get it immediately.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So, we got a few comments here. Todd B said, hey, boys. Stephen M. Mann said, hadn't thought about that. Todd B said 147 years ago, Duke, 1876. I have to think about
God
that.
Bless it. This is 2023, not 2026. 40. What the heck? Oofta. As you can tell, I've not drank enough Coca-Cola today. I've only had 3 bottles.
I was about to say, because I was sitting here thinking I was about to say, yeah, 1876, the summer of, was an exciting year for Western history, and then I was like, but it's not. But I didn't.
150 years for the 73 single action, the 73 Winchester, and the 73 trapdoor.
150 years since the Yellowstone campaign, or whatever.
And the Yellowstone campaign, yep. Boy, I screwed that one up. Well, anyway, he still died 147 years ago. So, so I guess I got 3 years to figure that song.
You got 3 years to finish writing your song. It looked pretty good. It needed a little bit more rhyming at the end, but it looked like he was pretty well onto it.
Yeah. Well, I know. I was sitting there thinking about that when I said that too. I was like, wait, 150th of Little Bighorn is in 3 years. It's like, oopta. Well,
we got.
I guess we got to quit the show. I already screwed up.
Oh my.
All right. What was you about to say?
Oh, I said AR Americans in. He said good evening, but I was going to say there is a Coulter Wall song on Wild Bill.
Yeah, there is. I've listened to parts of it. Usually when it comes on my playlist, it's about the time I shut the car off to go into work. So
your playlist is set, huh?
Yeah. Well, no, I cycle through them because I just listen to it on Amazon. But yeah, that one always pops up right when I get to work.
Yep.
So, but anyway, so yeah, like I said, I apologize, folks. I didn't have a topic for tonight. I know we've been trying to finish up on Red Clouds of War. I guess I can talk a little bit on that too. So I've been doing a little research and I finally figured out. So yeah, there's a great picture, and I don't have it, and I don't know if, well, you'll probably not be able to find it online. Anyway, there's a great picture from the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, which was a treaty that ended Red Clouds of War. And there's one guy. Well, there's Alexander Gardner was a photographer, and he came out and he took all kinds of photographs during this event. And there's one guy that pops up in about 5 of the pictures, and knew he was attached to the Peace Commission, but could not figure out who he was. And I finally found out last night out at work. His name's Ashton S.H. White, or Ash White is how he signs his name too. So yeah, found him. Kind of the big mystery that we've been trying to solve out there at the fort for a little bit. But yeah, one of the reasons why I've been trying to figure him out is because when I have my beard a little fuller, everybody says I look just exactly like him. So I think probably next year, if things work out, because all of the clothing that he's got, you can get the reproductions of at South Union Mills. So I'm thinking that I'm going to try to get all that gathered up next year, and I'm actually going to play him for programs out there at the fort.
Cool. Oh, our uniform came in today, finally.
Oh, hey, you got it there with you?
No, it's at Ethan's house.
Well, get him on the horn. Tell him to bring it over.
Yeah.
Tell him to wear it too. We'll take a look at it and see how good it is.
He's busy.
Uh-oh.
I gotta, as a matter of fact, today here at around 10 o'clock my time, I gotta switch off with him. But
oh, he out working on the hayfield?
Yeah, he's moving stuff around. But I'll
tell
send
him
you a picture of it.
Sure. Yeah, tell him that hay will ain't gonna move that far come between now and tomorrow.
The rain might move in though.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's on. Oh, okay. I thought you still talking about loading bales.
No, we loaded all the ones we'd made, and now we got to make some more. It's on the ground.
That was always the one part of the year I didn't really care for on ranching. Everybody loved sitting in that air-conditioned tractor. I hated it. I just, hated driving in a circle. But, well, if I open that up, I ain't going to be able to.
You can see it later. Needless to say, we're just a hop, skip, and a jump from starting that Springfield series.
Now, I think you're going to have to get a Springfield muzzleloader, 61 or 63 to start it.
Actually, we're working on finishing paying for it.
Oh, okay. Actually, you should start with the Charleville
I don't want to go back that far.
and do
I
all
like
the models between the Charleville.
one of these days. My plan is to get from the Model 65 to the Model 1888, and then have another series one of these days where I start with the 1796. I guess Ethan would do most of that and go up to the 1864 model muzzleloader.
Right.
I mean, in reality, the funny thing is, and I mean, this, but they don't change hardly anything on that gun from about 1776 to 1888. I mean, they changed the trapdoor and everything, but the overall design is just the same.
Yeah, the body of it. Yeah, the Charleville is the rifle style that's going to dominate, well, for 100 years.
Yep.
All right.
Read some comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Guys, if you got any questions or comments, throw them out there. Tonight's pretty relaxed. So Barbara Fraser's in. She says hello, good evening. Rack Attack Gamer. New guy. Okay, so question: if black powder substitute cakes out on you, what do you do to get it back to powder safely?
So if you're talking about Pyrodex, if it's caked in the bottle, you just take a spoon and mash it out. I wouldn't use a plastic spoon because plastic spoons tend to do static electricity for whatever reason, but any spoon, just kind of mash it out. And Pyrodex, if that's what you're using, is not nearly as sensitive as what black powder is. But yeah, you can just mash it out that way. You can do it with your fingers too if you feel like it. But yeah, it's not that big a deal. It's not gonna blow up on you or anything.
I actually use a regular spoon, just as long as you're not banging it against another piece of metal. You're probably all right. But
sparks is the one thing you got to worry about. Static electricity, not as much. Especially if it's graphited with black powder, which most black powder, commercial black powder, is graphited to some extent. Non-graphited can be very touchy with static electricity.
Yep. It could be. Stephen M. Mann said, what? Driving in circles helps finish writing songs. That is absolutely true. I think every song I've ever written was a detractor.
How come I ain't got a 1911 song yet then?
Because I've wrote 3 songs in my entire life. It's like it only hits me. If it's gonna be a good one, I got 3 of them that I'm really proud of, and it's got to be. It only happens once every few years. I get the moment, and everything comes together, and it works. Todd B said, I picked up my first 1877 Colt in 38. The action is good, dated 1898. It's such a tiny little thing.
Huh. That's interesting because I just happened to know there was an 1877 that was for sale. And when my friend went to look at it again, she said it was gone. And that was earlier this week.
I got 2 of them somewhere around here, but I'm not going to grab them on stream. YouTube frowns on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the handlers too. They're nice.
I will say the trigger return spring breaks on them sometimes, but in reality, they are way more reliable than people give them credit for.
Yeah. But
Leroy Frazier said, Dryball Jimmy watching. Good to see you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's Uncle Dryball. And so that's a funny story if you haven't heard it before. I was out there filming, and I think I was shooting my brown bass. He was shooting his Hawken rifle. And, I was filming the brown bass. That or I had the sharps. I don't remember which. I had one or the other. Anyway, he puts a cap on, and it just goes snap. Thought he dryballed it. We could not get that ball to come out no matter how much powder we put down the barrel or down the cut. We pull the cone out, we put powder down in that cone. And finally I just said, God, I don't know why it won't come out. So I poured a whole bunch of powder, and I just kept pouring it in there till I had about 15 grains down that barrel. And I thought, man alive, I'm going to have to ram that ball back down. And so I took the ramrod out, gave it a shove, pulled it back out, and it had powder stuck on the end of the ramrod. So I dumped full charge of powder in, point it in there, pull the trigger. Oh, boom.
Oh,
He'd never put a ball in there.
That's better dry balling, I guess. Oh, I never heard that one. That's a good one. I never heard that.
Yeah, and so
I've heard a lot of weird things. That's one I haven't heard.
so I was laughing, and I just come up with it on the camera. I said, yeah, dry ball Jimmy over here. And then I think he did have a dry ball that day too. But yeah, that one was a funny one.
You're going to have to read this one, Duke. I can't pronunciate that word from Barbara Fraser.
I think she meant to type circle.
Oh, okay. I thought it was some kind of fancy side-by-side or something.
Circule? I don't know what the heck that was all about, but holy Moses. That's all right. She went to school in Oklahoma.
Sorry to be late, he says.
You ain't missing much, Doug. This is a pretty informal chat tonight. I wasn't prepared for it. But, yeah. Sitting here trying to think of what else I could talk about.
I can guide you a little bit if you want to here in a minute.
Sure.
But Todd B said, enjoyed Caleb's new video. Good stuff. My main takeaway was Caleb still uses a flip phone. Yeah, that's been a joke between Caleb and Duke for quite some time, too.
He's got a regular other phone because I sent links to Gunbroker to him on it. I don't think he's got it paid up right now, though.
No, he has another phone that he uses as a computer when he's home, but it's never been turned on. It only goes to the Wi-Fi when he's home.
Oh.
That way he doesn't have to have a computer. So he can email. I think he can even do that over the internet text thing or whatever, but it's never been turned on like a regular phone. And he never takes it to work.
Oh, geez. Well, I know that one time he had a thing on it because I called him on it because he asked me, he says, why are you calling me on this phone?
I think when he very first got it, it came turned on when he got it.
Yeah.
And then he just never did again. But yeah.
I know I had to because I've got 2 phone numbers for him in my phone and I never know which one to call first.
Oh. Oregon Outback said there's some high-class jowl flapping going on here tonight.
Yeah, I changed the title around on there just to see what the heck was. Just for a little fun.
Todd B said those flip phones are rare birds these days. Yeah, and Caleb won't. There's 2 things he doesn't want, a new vehicle or a new phone. And he needs both. The old Chrysler is still putting around. Okay, serious question here. So kind of serious. Travis Lynn said, if you were going to buy the fewest number of rifles to get you from 1800 to 1900 as a mountain man, hunter, frontiersman, what would they be?
Oh, I'd probably go with probably a Dickert. Probably early on to be a Dickert style rifle. Get me through the mountain man era. And Kit Carson actually carried a Dickert when he was during his mountain man days. And then I probably transitioned to Sharps, and I'd stick with the Sharps through most of that. Even on into, through the cartridge era. And then, getting into closer to 1800s, I'd probably switch over to a Winchester at that point. But, yeah, I'd say if I just had to go with the fewest number, it'd be a Dickert and then Sharps. Because actually, Sharps will run you from 1848, 49, all the way through up until, they quit making them in the oh, God, I'm going to brain fart here. What year was last year? 1887?
The Sharps?
Yeah.
I thought they put out a cartridge in 1890 something. Maybe they just the Sharps cartridges, maybe.
Because Borchardt was the last one. That was 78. Or
Well, I can look right quick.
was that 78? Maybe it was. Yeah. But the rifle company went out. Yeah. About the time the Buffalo went out, the rifle company went out. And, Winchester by that point had gotten to where you had a lever action that could do the same thing, but you had the ability of firing without having to reload for a little while.
Yeah. I'm seeing lies. Wikipedia is telling on it. Says Sharps rifles were produced from 1848 to 1881.
81. That's right. Yeah, the Borchardt was the last.
I'm pretty sure they put out a few of those big bore cartridges after 1881.
Well, if I remember right, somebody got the rights to the name.
Well, that could very well be.
Because that 5140 Sharps, that's actually a very late cartridge.
Yeah, that's like 1890. Well,
and that was produced in the Winchester High Wall.
Yeah, and I've actually heard, I think it was Lever Guns 50 did a video, possibly on, he had found something that said it was earlier than everybody says, but it seems like common knowledge says designed 1884, according to Wikipedia, but how that is. Might not be.
Yeah, because and there was some that they were experimenting with the 50, because the 5090 and the 5100 are the same cartridge, just more powder in one. Technically, if you put a lighter bullet, the lighter the bullet, the more space for powder in theory. But yeah, it's one of those. I'd have to look more into it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure, that 5140 was pretty late because most of those rifles wound up going, a lot of them went to Africa, from what I read.
Mm-hmm.
They were used over there for big game cartridges.
Yeah. Stephen M. Mann kind of had an answer to this. He said his would be 1803 Harper's Ferry and a Lehman trade. And the what would Ashley do? Well, if I was going, and see, the thing is, you said from 1800, that puts you, if you go all the way back to 1800, that predates a lot of the stuff that we consider even, well, the Northwest Trade Gun's going to be around, but he specifically said rifles, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do kind of like the 1803. If you could get your hands on it, probably wouldn't be able to get your hands on it till about the 1820s. Because you can always pop that that short stock barrel off and clean it. And here's the quandary you run into. Militarily, I think single shots are the bee's knees all the way through. But when it comes to, say, 1868, and you're a mountain man, quote unquote, wood hawk, whatever you want to be, civilian by yourself out there, wouldn't you rather have a little more firepower when you're alone? Say maybe a Henry?
Yeah, possible. Or Spencer.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I would probably take a Spencer just because that cartridge just got a little more knockdown power.
Yeah. That's what everybody doesn't get when they're like, oh, you only like the single shots. I'm like, for certain situations, but definitely if you're by yourself, you don't want just a single. I mean, you probably get along, I guess, but then again, how often are you going to be by yourself in the 1860s? Even the buffalo hunters running camps, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of those guys that ran alone had the same outcome. They all got killed.
Yeah.
Or captured. It was like Frank Gerard, who was a scout and known to be off by himself a lot. He was captured twice by Indians. Once by the Crows, once by the Lakotas.
Well, you always talk about what his guns were. Didn't he have a Henry?
Yeah, he did. He had two 1860 Armies and an 1860 Henry.
And he didn't get the chance to use them.
Nope. Forgot he had guns. He got so scared.
That is an honest guy right there.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, some of that stuff he says is kind of a tall tale, but then there's other stuff he says that the facts are there to back it up.
Yeah.
And where the heck is that book? realizing I was sitting here looking at my bookshelf and I couldn't figure out. I was like, I'm missing a bunch of books. I forgot I got a box of books under my bed that I haven't even got on the shelf yet. All right, I got to turn the camera off because I got to move some stuff here.
All right, I'll read a few more comments if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Cool Hand said, just found the show was on. So, excuse me. Sorry I'm late. No big deal. Texan 1836 said, sorry I'm late, boys. No big deal. Uncle Chaw said 1874 Sharps from C Sharps or Shiloh would be my grail gun.
And if none of you have gotten this one yet, we're going to do a discussion with this book here sometime in the future. This discussion is coming. But if you haven't got a hold of one yet, Doug Dukes' book, Firearms of the Texas Rangers from the Frontier to the Modern Age. Great book.
My copy's right over there.
Yeah, it's like I bought tons of books on the Texas Rangers. And all looking for info on the firearms. This I wished I would have had a lot earlier. So this is a great resource. It's condensed. It's basically condensed down all that stuff I was looking for into one volume, and it's absolutely wonderful. Very well written, easy to read. Love this thing. And one of these days I'll have when I get started doing shorts again, which is going to be probably pretty quick here, start doing the book reviews, and this will probably be the next one up on that.
Stephen M. Mann said, speaking of, here's an odd statement for me anyways. I'm making a down payment on a rifle tomorrow. Todd B says the McNelly Sharps is the perfect rifle.
I would agree with that.
That's technically not a rifle. You want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right though. I would agree. That's the one I don't have that I would love to have. It needs to be in 5070 though, for a Sharps carbine. I think that would be sweet. What was the quote on that? If you miss, you have to reload. And McNelly said, well, I don't have guys that miss.
Yeah, I don't want men that miss. Yeah. So I've got it's weird. I just found this in my book. Because my buddy Joe I used to work with out at Fort got this, had all these cards that's got different firearms on it. So I'll show this. This is a real weird one. This rifle, it's a sharpshooter rifle. It's got this weird attachment that screws on and gives the barrel an extra inch or two. But that's the overall of the rifle. So it's definitely a sharpshooter. And then if you look up there, you can kind of see it. Sorry, my fan's moving it on me. See it screwed onto the barrel there. That's a really weird one. So I don't know what rifle that is. Anybody knows anything about it, tell me. Because I read on the back of the thing here. Yeah, I don't know what the heck that one is there.
Cool Hand said, I wouldn't have to have been captured by the natives in those days.
Well, the first time he got captured by the Crows, and I guess they stripped him naked and marched him into the nearest town somewhere in Montana. So it wasn't that bad of a deal. More embarrassment, but the second time, yeah, not a good deal.
Oregon Outback said, if you're only going to have a single shot out there alone, better have 25 of them.
You know, I'd take the Sharps just because, to me, the Sharps action is so much quicker. I can load and fire Sharps faster than I can a trapdoor. But
you really think without ejection, it's faster, or does?
No, if you shoot one of those original Sharps and you push that lever down, that shoots that case right back out of there.
Yeah.
Well,
could be.
Now, my Pedersoli that I had wouldn't do that. You had to push the lever down to get it to extract. But the one that I'm getting ready to buy off my friend here, once you bring that thing to half cock and you flip that lever down, if you flip it down with enough force, it shoots that shell right on out.
Because that was one of the issues, besides of course cost, that the military had with the Sharps was getting it to eject. But also you have to remember that copper ammunition too.
Copper ammo, and those early Benet primers were notorious for tearing out heads.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely true. But I would go with that. I would say that as far as if you're going to spend the money, the Sharps is better than the trapdoor. But if you can't afford it, the trapdoor is not a bad option.
Yeah.
Your civilian gun, I think the Sharps is better as far, especially when you have a tang sight and you can make it do whatever you want.
Just found so the guy so I was talking about this earlier. I forgot to print this photo off. The guy that I'm talking about is this guy right here. Ashton White.
He does look kind of like.
Yep. So I'm going to try to do him here one of these years. And then the reason I had this is because this picture here, this is John Reshaw Jr. And the Reshaw family is one I've been studying up out here at the fort. But I got a bunch of them. I have no idea what this is. This is kind of like Christmas, going through all my. Oh, I forgot Joe gave me that too. Forgot I had this picture of Fort.
There's the old fort.
Fort William. Fort William after it was built.
Yep.
So
American. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to go through my books. I was going through my books here, things I pulled them out.
AR American said I want an 1873 Winchester.
Yeah, those are nice, but I think I'll take a 66. Just more me doing living history. I want something that I can cover all the way back to 67, because really, even though it's 1866, 67 is when it hit the market. And they were very popular out here.
That's another good point. Just because a gun says a year, it may not get out west for another year or two afterwards.
Yeah, so like the all the 73s, 73 Winchester, 73 Single Action Army, and 73 Trapdoor really didn't see a lot of release until 74.
I think Winchester made 124 of them in 73.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that the 51 Navy was on the market in 1851. It was actually the 3rd Model Dragoon, and the 49 Pocket Model all pretty much hit the market in 1850, but the 51 Navy is called 51 Navy.
I think it's so surprising, though, because not to over-talk you, but I've been going through a lot of letters and a lot of pictures of my local area, and it's like single shot 50-70 trapdoors all the way up till about like there's also a lot of Sharps too and rolling blocks, but the cheaper trapdoors seems like the first Milsurps and 50-70. That's what everybody has until about 1875.
Right.
And then after that, they're gone, and it's Winchester 73s in everybody's hand after about 1875. And I think it's because of what happened in 76. Because, we look at history of the West, so like 76 is like the year everything happened, And so I think a lot of people were like, at that point, it's like we've got to up our firepower rate as civilians.
Yeah, we definitely do. But anyway, I just thought, well, things we don't have a topic night. I'm going to go over some books. Things I got these in my box, and I forgot I even owned them.
Let me get me a few of these questions out first, and then
go ahead.
Texican 1836 said, "Bring back the Billy Yank shorts."
One of these days.
Brandon Birch said, "False muzzle for that muzzle loader protects the crown and projectile while loading." But it was not a muzzle loader; it was a Sharps. It was a breech.
No, it was muzzle loader.
Oh,
it was a muzzle stuffer. Yeah.
Okay. And Cool Hand said, "How's the holster production coming along?"
Slow. very slow. I'm gonna go get a table tomorrow so that I can get set up and actually start getting some stuff done. Because I got a buddy that he's got to have a couple of them here before he goes and does his artist ride, which ain't gonna be nothing here. They're smaller holsters, ain't gonna take me very long. But yeah, anybody that's got one paid up, you're waiting on one. I'm trying to get them done as fast as I can. I just haven't had a lot of time. Because I've been doing stuff. I've been helping my friend out there on his ranch, trying to get ready, because that's kind of my agreement that I got with him, is I provide labor and then I get to hunt for free. So yeah, it's just, I've got so much on my plate. I just do this when I can, but I was going to start. Yeah. When I get back with a table, I'll probably get that early in the morning. I'm going to get started on leather tomorrow. I've got to get some stuff moving. So, but I have 2 holsters here that are officially unclaimed. And so anybody that's looking for something for a Remington or a single action Army with a 8-inch or 7.5-inch barrel, let me know. I got a fancy spotted holster and a civilian half flap, and they're just out of reach. And I've got like 20 books in my lap. So
That's all the comments.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of them sitting right behind me on the bed right now that I work on them a little bit when I can. But like I said, to start tomorrow, I'm going to try to get most of these out of here in the next 2 weeks. And I owe somebody, one of the viewers here, I owe somebody a lined Bohannon holster. I've got that thing cut out. I just got to line it here. All right.
We're ready to talk books.
Oh, I thought there was more questions.
Nope, that was it. That's why I tried to jump through them before so I wouldn't forget.
See, gotcha. All right. So the first one I got up, and that's just because it was top of the pile. We got Cheyenne Black Hill Stage and Express routes. So that's all about those stage lines that are running from Cheyenne, Wyoming, up to Deadwood and up there in the Black Hills. And these have come through Fort Laramie. So this is a nice little book. Unfortunately, I think the main book has been out of print because it comes from, I bought this on Amazon, and it comes from one of these cheap knockoff reprinters. So a lot of times it's missing certain sections, especially the index, if there was an index. So yeah, great book, but it's without its index, or I don't even think it has its footnotes. Yeah, it's missing a lot of stuff. So take it with a grain of salt when you buy these. If I can find an original, I'll buy it and replace this one. But that one's the first one off the list. And yeah, the rest of these, most of them are pretty decent. But yeah, the next one we got here, Post Traders or Peddlers and Post Traders, the Army Settler on the Frontier. And so this is a really great book that talks about, the settlery post trader program. And it gets into depth and goes out across the West out here. This one was, I always buy used books, but let's see here. I had something marked. Oh, it just said, yeah, it's a little section on Fort Laramie. But anyway, yeah, this is a great book as well. And a lot of these are going to be tied to Fort Laramie just because, I work at Fort Laramie.
I need that book. I'll have to look into that one.
Which one?
On the Post Settler. I'm kind of really interested in the Post Settler right now, and I'm interested in finding out the firearms dealt through the Post Settlery to scouts and such.
Oh, they sold just about whatever.
Yeah.
We can look it up here right quick. There's a great thing in the back called an index. It's actually in this book.
Because I want to see how many Post Settlery, how many Northwest trade guns were still going out in the 1860s through the Post Settlery.
Oh, there was a lot.
And that's kind of funny because we always talk about we always talk about the Hudson Bay Company putting them out, but these Post Settlers are getting them somewhere. Are they getting them new, or are they trading for them?
Both. But yeah, remember Northwest Trade Gun. By the time you get into that time period, they're made all over the place. Lehman trade rifles, they were making Northwest Trade Guns in the United States, in Pennsylvania in the 1840s. The Dutch had a variation of it. The Spanish had one. Yeah, there was all kinds of them. But yeah, that Northwest Trade Gun style with the flintlocks were produced up until 1875.
Yeah.
And Cynical
actually,
had one.
even later, because Hudson Bay didn't even get their caps on them until 1881. So that's directly from Birmingham. But yeah, you're right. That's different. It's a very interesting subject. I need to someday just sit down and make a whole video just on. But go ahead. Sorry, I was interrupting. I was just wanting to, if you had anything on
you're fine.
through the settlery.
And this one doesn't really go into the firearms. It doesn't mention them, so probably doesn't get that much into the subject.
It kind of piqued my interest because whenever you were doing the settler portrayal, I noticed that you always had a Northwest Trade Gun in your inventory.
Yeah, So we have a couple there at the fort because the post settler there at the fort is set up to represent between the late 1860s, early 1870s. And so, yeah, they have two of the Northwest Trade Guns. And that was something that was brought up they brought up out there is, well, would you really see flintlocks that late? And I went and looked in the firearms book on the fur trade encyclopedias. And if you can afford them, I highly recommend those books. They're like $100 to $150 each. But they said they produced the flintlocks clear up until 1875. So,
yes.
So yeah, here's another one.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Sorry. I was just gonna say I had the page drawn up. This is in 1879 October only. This whole page, all trapdoors captured and brought in by the actually these are only Sioux and Cheyenne. All trapdoors in only that month. These are Winchesters and Henrys. There's 16 altogether. Spencers, 23. And this is during the study, by the way, where they were trying to prove that the reason that they got outgunned wasn't tactics at Little Bighorn. They were trying to prove that they got outgunned because they were undergunned. It turned out they weren't because... And then here's that. They only brought in 13 Sharps.
Yep.
And they brought in... They brought in 21 miscellaneous, which is like your Remington, Gallaghers, Frank Wessons, Stars, Joslins, Warners. And then here we start. Lehmans. Lehmans. Oh, that's actually more conversion Allens, but 162 Lehmans brought in only in October of 1879.
Yep.
So that's and a bunch of them are smoothbore, actually. Flintlock smoothbore too, by the way. So, yeah. Well, a lot of muzzle loaders in 1879 still running around the West.
Absolutely, yep. So next book we got here is Broken Hand, and yeah, I've taken a lot of notes out of that one, and I don't even remember what they all were. I got them written down. Basically, I was tracking them where they were at when I was first studying at Fort Laramie. But anyway, so yeah, this is a great book on Thomas Broken Hand Fitzpatrick. He was a trapper out here in the West. He was part of the start of Fort William that will become Fort Laramie. He was the first Indian agent assigned to the Upper Platte and Arkansas River Agency. He's the one that started the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty, set that all up. And he guided the first official immigrant train on its way to Oregon in 1841. So, yeah, this guy definitely played a major role in American history. And you don't hear a lot about him, but yeah, he was definitely a big one in there. Oh yeah, this is the one I need to read. William Marshall Anderson, because he has some stuff there on Fort Laramie. But I actually bought that book, and it's one of those I bought and forgot I owned it. So it's
Is that
William Marshall
regulars?
Anderson.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Rocky Mountain Journals of William Marshall Anderson.
It looks like the same company that made that or put out that Frontier Regulars book.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's got the same black on the top.
Yeah, it very well could be. It is a Bison book, and this is an older model. Yeah, because this book is labeled as $10, and it probably would be selling for close to 20 or 30 now.
I got paid $39 for that Bison book on Frontier Regulars.
This one was done in 1987. So yeah, 1987 is when that one was published. All right, and then yeah, we got Bill Sublette. Like I said, Fort William was named after him, Bill Sublette, Fort William. And this is just kind of a basic coverage of his life and what he did out here in the West and after he moved back east. But yeah, he was a prominent trapper and trader out here. Pretty prominent name out around the rendezvous. And then, oh, hey, I forgot I owned this one.
Hey.
This is another one of those guys that I was tracing a lot of info on. John Simpson Smith, the Western Odyssey of John Simpson Smith. So he was actually, this is from my Bent Fort days. John Smith was a prominent trader from the Bent St. Vrain Company, and he lived with the Cheyenne, married into the Cheyenne, had a child with his Cheyenne wife. And he served as an interpreter at that 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty, and he was in Black Kettle's camp the morning of the Sand Creek Massacre, and his son was murdered the day of the massacre after most of the fire, most of the killing had been done. His son was ripped out of a teepee and shot to death, and then he died not too long after that. But yeah, he played a pretty pivotal role in Western history as well. All right, and then we got another one of these. Another one that it's a cheap printing from the Big Bite books, but it's Two Great Scouts and their Pawnee Battalion by George Bird Grinnell. So it's actually about Frank and Peter North. Not Peter North. What was it? Frank and Luther North. Jesus. So Frank and Luther North, they raised a battalion of Pawnee Scouts, and they served up in this part of the country in 1865, and I believe a little bit into Red Cloud's War. And then they were called into service again during the 1876 campaign and used as scouts. In late 1876, 1877, somewhere in there, they were released from their duty after that campaign had come to an end. But that's a great little bit, a little snippet about the Pawnee Scouts that operated out here. And then this is the one that I always get screwed up on the guy's name. Champion Buffalo Hunter, Frontier Memoirs of Yellowstone Vic Smith. I always get him and Yellowstone Kelly mixed up because they got the same nickname, Yellowstone.
They're both yellow.
But anyway, yeah, so Yellowstone Smith, he was out in the West, and he was a hunter and served spent a good part of his life out here in the West. Trapper, dispatch rider, scout, trick shot, and buffalo hunter extraordinaire, as he describes himself. And apparently I had some paper stashed in that. What the heck is that? Oh, hey, that's Fort Laramie maps. Okay. But anyway, kind of move on through here. Oh, yeah, then Fur Trade of the American West. This is a great little book. Talks a little bit about the fur trade. It's a very small book, so it's a brief history of it. But somebody that doesn't want to read a lot, this is kind of a pretty good, gives you a pretty good overview of everything that was going on out in the West. And then, let's see here. I'll skip that one because your mom's probably watching.
She is, actually. She just commented.
Yeah, so we'll skip that book. So here's another one. So if you're looking for the book on James Beckworth, go with the one by Eleanor Wilson, because Jim Beckworth's biography, the one that he dictated, a lot of the stuff he says is
Not quite.
the only man that could tell a story better than Jim Bridger was James Beckworth. Yeah, and it says it right here, dismissed as a gaudy liar by most historians. But yeah, he did play a big role out here, but he did tell a lot of tall tales and took a lot of credit for stuff that he didn't do. And then this one is actually, it doesn't pertain as much down here in this part of the country as it does up in Canada, but it's called Many Tender Ties, and that's Women in the Fur Trade Society. And so, yeah, this is a pretty good overview of kind of the women's role and the native women's role in the fur trade out in the West. But like I said, it's mostly focused towards the Canadian side of things, but still a pretty good read. We've only got 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that one's technically 5, 6, 7, 8 more books to go, and then they all go back in the box. All right, so this is a fun one because, yeah, exploits of Ben Arnold. Ben Arnold had a lot of different names. He also went by Connor and several other names. And so whenever you see the name Ben pop up with a name as a scout out here in the West, more than likely it's this guy, but it's not always the same name because if I remember right, yeah, he deserted twice from the Army out here at Fort Laramie. And so he was always changing his name. But he did serve as a scout out here in the West. Yeah, he chased Quantrill around. He was out there for part of that. Got to see part of Lawrence burning when they sacked Lawrence, Kansas. Yeah, he was out at Fort Kearney, Dobytown, which I don't remember what that is, Julesburg, Fort Laramie. Yeah, and then, yeah, he was stationed out west of Fort Laramie there and then deserted for whatever reason. Yeah. Yeah, so he deserted on his second enlistment, re-enlisted under an assumed name, and then deserted again. Yeah, and then spent some time up around Virginia City, and then he kind of came back down in this part of the country again. But yeah, this is a pretty good book, and yeah, pretty interesting, pretty easy to read. This one here is a wealth of information, but I will warn you, it is a very dry read, and that's Life of George Bent. So this is actually written off letters that George Bent wrote to George Hyde. And yeah, this kind of tells the story of the Southern Cheyenne and the Cheyenne in general. But yeah, great read. I spent quite a bit of time pouring through it. As you can see, I got quite a few notes in it. Probably have a lot more if I just go back and read it again. Because that was just, yeah, that's just stuff that, this is what I've got marked in there right now, is stuff that ties to Fort Laramie. So, yeah, this is mostly stuff. It's, yeah. And then I'll do, let's see, I'll do these three together because they're actually all pretty close to the same book, and written by the same guy. So that's, first one is The Fighting Cheyennes by George Bird Grinnell, and it goes hand in hand with The Cheyenne Indians Volume 1 and Volume 2 by George Bird Grinnell. And these two really get into depth into the Cheyennes society. The first book is on history and society. The second book's on war ceremonies and their religion. And then the Fighting Cheyenne is kind of a more of a like a condensed version of those two. But these books are excellent when you're studying anything out here on the Cheyenne, on the plains. And then I have the Cheyenne in Plains Indian Trade Relations. So this is all dealing with fur trade stuff. And that's what that one looks like. It's still got its library sticker on there. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that to come off. Let's see. And then we have one by Hoig, which Hoig actually writes a really good one on the Sand Creek Massacre as well. But Peace Chiefs of the Cheyennes, great book by Hoig. I've read through most of it. I just got to the chapter 9, which covers Dull Knife, Little Wolf, and Little Chief. But that book's a great read as well. And then the last two, I'm going to save this one because it's best for last. But this one is With My Own Eyes. So this is a first-hand accounts of two Lakota women, or a Lakota woman, Susan Bordeaux and Josephine Wagner. They tell kind of the story of what went on out here in the West. Because, Susan Bordeaux, Bedaloon. So Susan was the probably the daughter of James Bordeaux. And then Bedaloon, the Bedaloons were a family that also came out here. They first came out here to trade. In fact, there's a picture there at Fort Laramie from the Alexander Garden frontage that has Bedaloon in it with James Bordeaux. I can't remember his first name, the Bedaloon's first name, but Amos Bedaloon, yeah. They're all prominent traders out here in the area, but yeah, she was raised near Fort Laramie. She kind of tells their story from firsthand accounts. So this is a really great book. I need to sit down and read it all the way through. I've read sections of it, but it's a pretty good book there. And then the last one I got here is good old Frank Gerard. We can't get past him. So yeah, Joe DuBarth was the one that wrote it for him, but Frank Gerard is really the one that tells it. The only problem I've got with this book is it's written in Frank Gerard's own words and firsthand account. The problem is that the author puts his thoughts and ideas in there too, and there's no distinguishing thing that splits them up. So after you get to reading it for a while, you start to realize how Frank talks and how the author talks, and then you can kind of separate out and realize that, okay, this is where he's not, it's not Frank Gerard talking anymore.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, it's great. Tells the story of Frank Gerard out here. It's a pretty hefty sized book, and most of that is, well, it's all, yeah, because there's no index in it. For whatever reason, they've got like 10 or 12 pages of blank in the back, but yeah, it's a great read. Keeps you on your toes. I've never had a dull moment in there. And then I just found a bunch of other notes and stuff that I was looking for on other stuff. So
all your papers are bookmarks?
Yeah. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I use I use a lot of note cards out there at the fort, and they get used as bookmarks, but a lot of times when I write down something that I'm looking for in the library, I'll write it on one of those cards, and then I can't find it and stuck it in a book somewhere. But anyway, that's kind of our book review. So other than that, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't have much sustenance for tonight's talk, but so you had said something earlier you was going to guide it a direction. Which direction were you wanting to guide it to?
Well, we got a few AR American said, good night, fellas. I get up early tomorrow.
Yeah,
Steven,
AR, if you're still listening, I got to send you your holsters. I haven't forgot. They're just on the pile. I need to remember to go to post office and get some boxes.
Stephen M. Mann said, just want my cutout. Whatever that means.
Yeah, I've got yours over here in the pile too. And I'm going to try to do that here tomorrow.
You should always order from October to May. That's what I found
Well,
out.
the thing of it is, some of these guys did, and it just
It just hasn't
things caught up
gotten
with me.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was bad. Yeah, this year's bad, and I've been bad about it. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but I will stop by the post office tomorrow and get some boxes. Try to get it out here as quick as I can.
Gina Woods said, howdy, great to see you, Duke. And
Hey,
yes,
Gina.
for the Billy Yank shorts.
One of these days.
And we'll skip past Todd B. We'll get that one here in a minute because that's a deeper question. Stephen M. Mann said Joseph L. Meek is a merry mountain man.
Yeah, I have that book somewhere. Don't ask me where it's at. I read it. I bought it. I don't know where it's at.
Doug Duke said, thanks for the kind words about the Duke book. Holiday said, thanks for all these book recommendations. I recently finished The Highly Irregular Regulars.
Yeah, that's a good book. I like that one.
Todd B says, what is the 19th century firearm would be your stuff hits the fan firearm for 2023? Like how I did that, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty slick. I
think you better go rifle, pistol, and shotgun.
Oh boy, now you're really gonna do me in. Okay. So 19th century. Where stuff hits the fan. I think I probably would still go. I'd go with the 1866 or the 73. Because that 73, that 4440 is enough to bring a deer down. Wouldn't want to take anything bigger than that with it, but enough to take a deer down. Holds a decent capacity. If you get either the carbine or the rifle. Carbine has 10 rounds. Rifle can hold 12, or 14, something like that. Anyway, so yeah, I got knockdown power, got capacity. Handgun, it's gonna be a Colt. I'm always gonna go with a Colt. Then for a shotgun, technically the 1897 is 19th century, so I'm going with the 1897.
Absolutely. I was going to say, yeah, it says for simplicity's sake, I was thinking right along the same lines as you. For shotguns, it's got to be the 1897.
Yep.
It's possible, I guess, an Auto 5 could have been out in the 19th century, but it's not that simple.
No.
73 single actions about got to be because it's simple. I know how to work on it. Powerful. And I'd probably go with a rolling block in 45-70 for a bigger, heavier hitting rifle for a little longer range. I feel like the shotgun, Model 97, covers most of the rifle territory. It's like
that's true. Territory. And if you're liking Red Dead Redemption, you can use a slug or shot.
Yeah. And the reason I said rolling block over trapdoor there is it's much easier to mount one of those Malcolm scopes to the rolling block than it is to about anything else. And the reason I would go with rolling blocks over the Sharps is it's just a little simpler as far as parts and moving parts.
So what year was it that the Colt come out that was the double action 45 long Colt?
78, the Omnipotence.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what was the one that the Army had? They went to the 38th and then went back to the 45.
That is technically it's the model 1891, but it's pretty famously, the 1895 is the one that goes, and then they go back to the new service. So yeah, right. Then the new service, like the 1917 is just a new service that's got a stopper in it for 45 ACP.
Right. So I would go with a 45 caliber double action.
Yeah, the Omnipotent, the 1878 double action. Yeah, that'd be cool. The only thing I would say would be that I would have against it in that situation is the availability of parts. Maybe seems like a single action would be simpler. I don't know.
Right.
But you're probably right. I guess we answered that question, huh?
Yeah.
A couple here. Jack Booker Jr. said Walker 1847. If you want to carry that thing every day. Gina Wood said, I'm proud of you, Garrett. Why, thank you. I thought I did a slick job there myself. And Jack Booker Jr. said 73 for rifle. And Oregon Outback said Gatling gun. And that kind of leads me to where I was saying we could guide this a little bit, because I actually had that conversation just this week with Josh from Wild West Extravaganza, and he was asking me about Gatling guns, and I said I'm not an expert on Gatling guns, but basically his point of the Gatling gun was it's like a car chase in a modern movie. Every action movie has a car chase. Every Western has to have a Gatling gun, and he was asking for, outside of the Civil War, an actual example of a Gatling gun being used in the West. And all I could think of was the two that weren't used at Little Bighorn and the ones that were later used at Spanish-American War.
Yeah.
I was hard-pressed to find a story, or like I said, I'm no expert. I was going to refer to you.
I actually looked this
being
up.
used in combat.
I looked this up here very recently because somebody came into the fort and said, "Oh, the Gatling gun, they just use that to mow down the natives." And I got to thinking, it's like, how many times was that actually used in combat? And it only come up like 3 or 4 times. And that was mostly during the Red River War. So that was down in Oklahoma. What did I do with it? Because I got the whole other shelf of books, the books that are on the shelf over here. The Buffalo War, that's the one I'm looking for right there. This is actually the book that I need to get back into a safe, because this is my prized possession from Joaquin Jackson. If you don't know who that is, very famous Texas Ranger. And Doug Duke, yeah, he could probably tell you more about him than I could. Let's see. Gatling. No Gatling gun. Shoot. Let's see. Was there guns? No. Is there firearms? No. Let's go to weapons.
Might be under artillery.
Warfare. Weapons. Nope, not even weapons. So, yeah. And all of these times, they don't get a lot of arms. There we go. Arms and ammunition. But it doesn't break them down into any more than that. All right, so let's go to page 28. Hey, what do you know? I was on page 27. Okay. Raymore himself. He's a little betting, a little grabbing Formula team would drive out on the divide between North. Let's see here. Sound of buffalo guns would be interrupted with reports of lighter guns. Okay. That must have been all of that on that. So let's see. What's the next one? Is 29 through 30. Okay. Is this the... Oh, yeah, it's talking about the buffalo hunters. Okay, this is something weird. One other rather grim article that each hunter carried with him at all times was his bite, a big 50 cartridge emptied of its powder and filled with cyanide, guaranteed quick death, and definitely preferable to the tortures devised by the Indians.
Wow.
That's a new one on me. I'd never heard that one before. So,
wow. A 5090 cartridge full of cyanide.
Yeah.
Well, I know, it was available because John Johnson was pouring it over the food that he was feeding the Indians in the mountains.
That's
The real
true.
Jeremiah Johnson.
And the buffalo hunters
Cool.
kept cyanide around because that's what they used to keep bugs out of the hides. They'd mix that with water and then sprinkle it over the hides.
Mhm.
In fact, we've got a jar of it. It's called Moth and Bug Killer. We've got an old jar of it out there at the fort.
Mhm.
So I don't know why they would stick it in a 50 when an ammunition case when it's like, I just carry the jar with you.
Well, it'd be a nice little vial with a little plug in the end of it, I'm sure, a little cork.
Yeah.
You can get
See,
a hold
page
of it.
60. Let's see.
While you're looking, I'll read a couple here. Snapper Antique Firearms Unlimited said, "Howdy, boys." Doug Duke said, "Garrett, can't believe you didn't go with 5070." Yeah, and I actually was thinking about that, and I didn't mention it, but in the situation we were talking about, you got to be able to find brass in 5070. Although it is my favorite cartridge right now, it's definitely one of the hardest pieces of brass to find. Whereas
Try finding
4570,
Spencer.
4570 brass is just about everywhere. You mean Spencer Rimfire or Spencer Centerfire?
Either one.
Yep. Let's see. Kodak Tackman said 73 Winchester and Colt Frontier. Hey, there you go. Interchangeable ammunition.
There you go.
Was a Gatling gun used at Wounded Knee?
No, they might have been used there. I know the Hotchkiss was.
The Hotchkiss. It's not quite a Gatling gun, but it's
No, single barrel Hotchkiss. I found out
Yeah.
it was a single barrel Hotchkiss.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's just a breech loading cannon.
But they did have a revolving Hotchkiss. But I
Yeah, they were around, but they didn't have them at Wounded Knee.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently they had one nearby, but they actually took the single shot one. Because that was a very devastating gun. Okay, 71.
Stephen Mann said Gatling gun Jam-O-Matic. Snapper said he just woke up. Why am I not surprised?
Hey, Snapper, I'm going to send that stuff here one of these days. Yeah, I haven't guessed. I'm a little slow on shipping stuff, so bear with me.
He's almost as fast as Amazon.
No
Which
kidding.
brought us to another question from Texan 1836. He said, "Do y'all have a preferred source to find y'all's books?"
I buy them on Amazon, and I buy the used section. They're cheaper.
As far as suggestions go, I always have this guy named Duke Fraser Productions usually. And if he doesn't know, I go to the comment section of my videos because you guys always seem to.
And I get a lot of mine because I go up to the library at work and see whatever books I'm looking for and then take down the title and I buy it.
Wasn't that kind of your job to kind of go through them at one point?
Supposed to be part of my job, never happened.
That's about all we got for comments at the moment.
Okay. Jesus. Still just talking about the Buffalo Hunter guns. Page 90. See if I can find that Gatling in here. Page 90. Okay, the Ranger's been shooting only with revolvers, none of them carabines are equipped with magazines, and the fighting been too fast and too thick to keep rolling rifles. Some of the showing signs of cracking the first engagement with Jones. So that must be talking about Texas Rangers carrying sharps. Okay. That's not what I wanted. Ugh, for crying out loud. 117. I'll be upset if I get all the way through this and there's no Gatling gun.
I think we can safely say it was a very rare occurrence if it did happen.
Yeah, no, the thing is, I looked it up and it said, yeah, there's only like 4 instances where Gatlings were used in combat out here. But yeah, so yeah, on the Gatling gun, the early models are actually pretty big, talking 50 caliber. There was a 1-inch bore Gatling. That was actually the Gatling guns that Custer sent or refused were the 1-inch bore Gatling guns. They were very prone to jamming. They didn't fire very fast. It was only 6 barrels or 5 barrels, 5 or 6 barrels, and it had a hopper feed system, which is also part of the problem why they jammed. But it wasn't until the 70s that they go to the 45-70 round. And
Colt-made Gatling gun.
Yeah, and then you get the Colt ones, yeah. And I think our 1876 model we've got out at Fort Laramie was made by the Colt factory. So in reality, the biggest revolver Colt ever made was a 45-70 revolver.
No kidding. It's true. That is very true. I had a laugh about that on another chat when you said that one day.
Yep.
Oregon Outback said organizing the library falls right behind shipping on Duke's list of things to do. That's pretty good. Oh,
it's true.
Oh, and then the rest of the comments are just they're talking to Snapper, I think.
Yeah, I know the organizing of the library was my previous boss, and it's been long forgot about. Basically, it was I think I was supposed to go up there and actually get some books put into the system. Then last year we actually did have a librarian. This year we're without one again.
But one of the things that Josh and I were talking about was, I found it kind of funny because Josh, although he's a great Western historian, he doesn't do a lot of discussion on the firearms, whereas he covers like everything else, And so
Right.
he asked me to give him some suggestions for Westerns that had firearms that were not correct to the period. And the first thing he said was, I was watching the Comancheros the other day. I said, you nailed the number one movie right there that everybody talks about. But then we went on to discuss things like all the searchers, where I find it kind of interesting because they do actually use some 73 Winchesters in that, which in reality, when it starts, it's set in 1868 because they say the war's been over for 3 years.
Yeah.
But if you assume at the end that Natalie Wood has been captured for 10 years and it's 1878, then the guns are getting pretty accurate. A lot of the stuff, they just got them way too early right off the bat.
So according to this one, I finally found it. They have an artillery detachment of 1 Parrott 10-pounder and 2 10-barreled Gatlings. Under Lieutenant James W. Poe, also the 5th Infantry. So that was part of the 4 companies. That was under General Miles.
Mm-hmm.
Because Miles, McKenzie, they all were down in that Southern Plains War, and then they come up and they fight in part of the Northern Plains War. So they were all getting moved around.
Then they went and fought strikers in Chicago.
Yeah, so there was the 4th Cav, there was a 6th Cav, 5th Infantry, 127. Let's see, I'll go to 133. Now that we're finally finding Gatlings, maybe we actually find where they talk about using them, because it says they were used. Okay, here's some interesting Baldwin Scouts. I'll have to read that up.
Yeah, that was one of the things we talked about was the Gatling guns being so portable and usable. And I had to tell him that Josie Wales getting that little Gatling gun in the back of that wagon and just running it flawlessly by himself is not something that would have happened in history. Because that was kind of a little pup Gatling guns. That was not one of those big ones. The big one, the carriage would have been half as big as the wagon.
Yeah, that one that Custer turned back, the wheels were about 4.5, almost 5 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big gun. Because it's on a Napoleonic carriage. Let's see here. Yeah, it talks about them deploying the Gatling. The infantry Pope's Gatling gun, the infantry and Lieutenant Pope's Gatling guns and 10-pounder were added to the line. Miles ordered the formation to advance. All the officers wrote Miles acted with courage and gallantry. One of them, Captain, later General Adna Shaffy, exhorted his men with wry utterance. Forward, if any man is killed, I will make him a corporal.
Sounds like the army today.
Yep.
Just ask Ethan.
Let's see.
If any man's killed, I'll make him a corporal. That's pretty good. Oregon Outback said no, but Clint looked pretty good running it. Many a Yankee bit the dust that day.
Let's see. Well, I didn't find anything there. Still, what page bomb? 130. So let's go to 144 is the next page. Let's see. Fort Wallace. Colorado. Oh, muzzle loaders. Yeah. Better. Okay. 162. Okay. Hatcher been searchable. Made it go by right now. It was just good fortune. Yeah, talk about a howitzer. Okay. Yeah, nothing on the Gatling. Then I lost my marker. Orange. Okay, on page 162. So let's go to 181. Boy, they must not use them Gatlings very much.
I was surprised to hear you say that it was ever fired in anger outside of the Civil War, as far as in the American West.
Yeah, it was just a few times. Let's see. Oh, this kind of talks about what they were taking from the natives as they was fleeing. Said there are bows and arrows, shields, lances, quivers, buffalo robes, with and without hair, highly decorated and painted, new blankets just from the reservation, stone china, kettles, tools, and implements of every description, down to a pair of tinner shears. Huh. The best breech-loading arms with plenty of metallic cartridges, one mule being found packed with 500 rounds and another with lead and powder kegs, bales of calico and turkey red. Turkey red, I wonder if that's whiskey. Sacks of Minneapolis, Osage, mission flour, groceries of all kinds in profusion. Also found in the villages were 2 forlorn scraps of paper on which one observer's words comment is unnecessary. Okay. Okay. Although 300. Oh, this guy. Let's talk about Battle of Palo Duro. I didn't say anything about a Gatling. Well, we got one last page. Okay. Ha!
Found.
So, Neil, who I'm guessing is a officer or a somebody. Anyway, Neil deferred to their judgment for the time being and instead ordered up a Gatling gun with revolving barrels, poured rounds into the entrenched Indians from 400 yards distance. When that was done, Neil again ordered the men forward, this time afoot. Rafferty's M Troop advanced, but was beaten back when he received no aid from either company of the 10th Cavalry. Once more, Neil sprayed the Indians with a Gatling gun and resolutely ordered all men to charge. Again, incredibly, the Cheyennes turned back the troops, and with nightfall, Neil broke off the engagement, trying to charge at dawn with every man he could muster. His losses at this time amounted to a shocking 19 men wounded, in addition to 3 dead horses and 6 hit. One soldier, Private Clark Young of M Company, 10th Cavalry, lay dying. 3 others in the 19th were wounded seriously.
Sounds like he should have saved his ammunition.
And the Cheyenne escaped without resist, or the Cheyenne escaped during the night.
So the one time we know that it was deployed,
And it didn't do a damn bit of good.
it was just him. Someone saying sprayed him. Well, I see what he was trying to do. That's a Napoleonic tactic right there, soften them up with artillery and then charge. But
400 yards away.
Artillery is in an entrenched position. Artillery goes up and then comes down.
Yeah.
But at 400 yards, you got a little bit of an arc, but you're just going to go right over the top with a 45-70.
So the thing of it is with those Gatling guns at that distance is that every one of those barrels don't hit the same spot.
Mm-mm. Well, it would be a what do they call that? Not an impact zone. It would be a beaten zone.
I'll put it this way: at that point, for that particular gun, the minute of angle was probably 50 yards wide.
Yeah, could be.
Depending on which barrel. So 400 yards, it's not going to be doing much good.
My only thing is at 400 yards, like the 45-70, when they talk about making the 1,000+ yard shots with the 45-70, that bullet is coming down.
Yeah.
But at 400 yards, it's coming down a little bit, but it's just, if they're entrenched, you're just going to shoot over their heads.
So at 350 yards with a 405 grain bullet, the drop, if I remember right, is damn near 5 feet, 54 inches.
Well, at the Springfield, they're zeroed at 3.
Yeah.
And so I have to, with the Springfield and a 405 grain bullet, I have to aim about 3 inches low at 100. Yeah. And then if you aim at the upper chest at 350, you'll usually get right in the gut area. So, he needed to have a lot more range if he was going to try to beat him down into an entrenched position with him.
Yeah, because a drop at 500 yards is probably going to be getting close to 10 feet.
Very well could be.
Yeah. I just know when I shoot my sharps at 400 yards, you're starting to really climb that ladder sight on the back.
Mm-hmm. Okay. They're just talking. I'm going to have to get off of here pretty soon. I'm about to hit my time. They're just talking to Snapper back and forth now.
No worries. But, anybody's got holsters ordered with me, just be patient. They're coming. I don't know when I'm going to get them out, but they're coming. Everybody that's paid up gets priority. So I know I got a holster for Doug Dukes. It'd take me all of an hour to get it stitched. I just need to sit down and do it. I got another guy that is paid up. I got to put a toe plug in it. I got several that are paid up that I'm behind on. And Slick 6 guns, I got one for him. Actually, all I need to do is set a rivet and put some dye on the edge and then wet mold it to the magazine, and that thing would be ready to get out of here. But, just be patient with me. Like I said, I'm busy as heck, but I'm going to try to get a table set up here tomorrow so that I can actually get some work done, because that's been 90% of why I haven't been able to get much done, is I just don't have room to do it right now.
Yep. Did you get my book I sent you the other day? I never even...
I did. I don't know what I did with it. But it's around here somewhere.
I bet I was going to say, if Mama's still watching, she probably hasn't seen one of those in 20 years. For a while, she sold those for him for forever. We had probably 500 of those stacked in the house at one point.
Yeah, I looked at it a little bit, but I ain't had a chance to read it because, like I said, I've just been so busy. I don't have a chance to do much of anything. It's
one of those books that I've owned my whole life, and I've never even read it, except for the front and the back, because I probably never use it. But it's kind of cool to have in your library. Well, that was one more thing. I had a question the other day from... and it's a good, honest question, but it was from Stephen M. Mann, was doing opening mail call book reviews. He said, when do you have time to read all these books? And I saw it, and I used to be able to read a book a week. Here lately, I'm lucky if I do a book a month. So, I'm kind of behind. You do it. How's your reading schedule? You just read every chance you get?
Whenever I get a chance. Right now, it's like I've been trying to trying to do different projects. Another project I'm working on too is getting a set of moccasins done before we have this next big event coming up in 2 weeks. And I'm trying to get them beaded because I need something beaded for the little skit I'm doing. But yeah, no, it's like when I'm working night guard, I get a little bit of time to read. But now that it's getting darker earlier in the day, I just don't have that window of research time that I had before.
And that's why I like books like Haven and Belden, where it's chapter sectioned off. It's not like reading a novel because I don't have time to like read. A lot of times I will not have time to sit down and read a whole book. If it's got a good index where I can find what I'm looking for, that's usually it. I know you miss some stuff that way, but it's hard to get the time.
But yeah, here hopefully, you see, when would be the next one of these?
A week from next Wednesday, hopefully, maybe, whenever.
Which date would be?
Yeah, date would be
16th.
The 16th.
Okay, that'll be after the Civil War event. So hopefully next time I got a topic that I can talk about. So
I had fun just talking about books.
We might just do the Santa Fe Trail because I know something on that one.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. And if I get Red Cloud's War finished up, we can do that. Oh heck, it's August 2nd. We should have talked about the wagon box fight.
Why didn't we talk about the wagon box fight?
Why didn't we talk about the wagon box fight?
Yesterday we should have talked about the hay. Well, it's because we talked about the wagon box fight just a few months ago.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah.
You covered it in great detail.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, not much more probably left to say.
We missed an opportunity again today.
We did talk about Wild Bill on his 150/47th anniversary of his death.
147, God, 150. Jesus. 150, or no, it's not 150, it's 170th of the. No, 100. Whatever, it's freaking anniversary of Gettysburg this year, whatever number it is. God, I can't do math. Yeah, 150th for Wild Bill is in 3 years.
That'll be the 150th for Custer, the 150th for, because I was thinking about that because the year they made all those little stockades around here, you and I were talking about, that was 73, and I just mentioned to Snapper I should make a video because it's been 150 years ago this summer, and then you mentioned that, and I was like, something wasn't clicking in my head, but I wasn't quite there yet.
Obviously, there was wires crossed in my head because, jeez. I think they call that's what's called a brain fart.
Well, when you get to 2026, that's going to be pretty cool because 90% of the famous Western history happens in 1870. A lot of stuff happens in 1876.
Yeah. So this is something I was going to discuss with you too, but we should definitely, if we're still doing this in 3 years, y'all come up and we just do a 76 tour.
Yeah.
Go to Deadwood. We'll go up to Slim Buttes.
Yeah.
Battle Slim Butte. Swing over, do Rosebud. We can do Reynolds Fight. I don't know. I think that's pretty well locked into private, pretty far back in there. But do Reynolds Fight, do Rosebud, do Little Bighorn. Try to do all those that we can get.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff happened in 76, and specifically in the summer of 76.
Yeah.
I think there's a podcast channel out there. Of course, it's not Wild West Extravaganza, who is my podcast channel I generally listen to. But there's another one that was called, where they had a whole deal just on the summer of 76. It's kind of crazy. It's like the West begins and kind of ends. It's like what we think of the Wild West really compacts into that era. It's like it kind of begins and it almost all ends right there in 1876.
Oh, that's not the one I was thinking of then. There's another one. It's Legends of the West podcast.
Yeah,
And that
Legends
guy.
of the West.
Oh, okay, yeah, that guy wrote a whole. He just released a book on, or is getting ready to release a book. It's all on 1876.
Yeah, and that's what he was talking about. Yeah, that's who it was.
Yeah, and he's got a pretty good one, but there's a couple things that he got that I was like, where did he get that information on? Here is one of the things during Red Cloud's War, that series. But overall, I mean, they're all pretty good. But the thing of it is with the history podcast and even my history chat here, I get stuff wrong too.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, there's
we're
been
not a big
times I've had to
channel.
correct myself.
You're not a big channel that gets 100 or 250,000 views on a certain video that none of it's correct, and I'm not going to say any names, but I'm still upset about that. I probably haven't even told you about that yet.
No, I'll have to hear about it after we shut this thing off. But
I'm thinking about making a video, but I don't want to be that guy. Let's just say that this guy is so big and so influential that there are right now 3 model 1868s for sale on Gunbroker that are marked as rare 1870s, and people are paying the rare 1870 money for them. And when I send them the video, or I send them the deal, and their questions say this is not an 1870, this is an 1868, they send me this guy's video, and I'm like, yeah, he's wrong.
oh boy.
So yeah, it's gonna be fun. I haven't decided if I'm gonna make the video or not yet, but it's a thought. I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah, it's fine. But so I guess we'll probably shut this down now. Give it a couple of minutes here. Might as well go through the comment section again. See if there's any last minute questions, comments, concerns, criticisms. Anybody wants to tell me I'm full of horse manure?
Well, they're just kind of talking back and forth, Snapper, about milling machines. But Stephen M. Mann said, no, Duke, it's called a fetter woman.
Ooh.
Oh, Oregon Outback has said, is that Black Barrel Media? Was he talking to you or me? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, Black Barrel Media is Legends of the West podcast. Yeah. It's part of the Black Barrel Media.
It's high quality. I give him that.
Yeah, no, it's just like, there's a few things that he gets. Like I said, I've listened to a bunch of different history podcasts, and there's some of them that, there's things that are like, what?
That's one thing I got to give Josh. He'll either retract or he'll come hunting people down trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And he's asked me, he's got in touch with me for some things. And sometimes he asks me stuff that's like, I don't have a clue on. Because he asked me something about old Bill Williams. And I told him, I was like, I said, I know that rumor was out there about him being a cannibal. I heard I read a lot of stories that said that he did that. But the thing of it is, there's nothing out there to confirm that he actually did or didn't. But yeah, I forget who it was. There was one guy said, don't ever get in front of Bill Williams when he's hungry. Because he didn't care. And we're talking about a guy that was a Methodist minister, circuit preacher, circuit rider preacher.
Yeah, old Alfred Packer.
Yeah. So, I guess I'll throw this little extra info out there. We might go a little bit longer. Heck, we can go to 145 and on a square note. But old Bill Williams grew up near the Osage Reservation, which I think is over in eastern Kansas. Fort Osage.
We're on the Osage Reservation right here where I live, or what was.
Yeah, well, I think it was even further east.
Yeah, but they still can't do digging and stuff without getting Osage permission.
Right. So anyway, Fort Osage is where he kind of grew up in that area. And he became a Methodist preacher, and he preached, like I said, circuit preacher. So that meant he traveled around. he did that for a while, and eventually he moves out, heads west to the mountains, and starts trapping. And he becomes just your regular ruffian mountain man. Um, he traps, and often he's one of those guys that did do the Jeremiah Johnson thing. He did trap off by himself. Well, he'd be off by himself a lot, but he would come down, he'd gather up, get with his buddies, and have a rip roaring good time. Has kind of his demise come about. So in the 1840s, he was one of those trappers that was not going to give up on beaver. And so he bought a bunch of trade goods from Bent St. Vrain Company, and they agreement on their contract with that was that he was going to pay him back at a certain rate for beaver, which in that year he was getting paid very good price for beaver. Borrows a bunch of traps from the company, and he takes off and he heads up for the Oregon country, and they trap beaver and stuff, but he never gets a chance to come down and pay off his debt to Bent St. Vrain. A lot of other guys pay off his debt or pay towards his debt, but he doesn't get it paid off. And so he had made friends with the Utes early on, and that's something that's kind of rare. There were mountain men that were friendly with the Ute, but there weren't a lot of them. It wasn't a common thing to happen. And so one year the Utes told old Bill Williams, and this is in the 40s, asked Bill Williams to take their furs down to Santa Fe and trade them for goods and bring them back to them. And because the Utes often weren't welcome around civilization, if you will. They weren't welcome down at Bent's Fort. There had been some tension between them and William Bent. So he goes down Santa Fe, takes furs down there. And then he takes the money he gets from those furs and he gets drunk. He goes on a drinking binge. And then he decides, oh, well, I guess I better not go back and face him or I'm going to, probably get killed. He says, I guess I was better off fighting him. And so there was something that was involved with the Army, and this is pretty early on. This is still in the 1840s. They'd went against the Utes, and Bill Williams led him up there. He got wounded, and he wound up back down at El Pueblo, which is where the town of Pueblo, Colorado is at today. But there was an old fort there. It was kind of a trading post and not a real nice place to be. But he hung out there and kind of healed up, and then he led Fremont up in the mountains. Well, he got Fremont lost because Fremont couldn't find Kit Carson. So he got Fremont lost. They about froze to death. It was almost a Donner Party incident. But they managed to get out of there, get back down to Santa Fe and get to safety. But they cached a lot of their goods up in the mountains. Well, Bill Williams figured he'd go up there. No sense in letting those goods just sit there and go to waste. He was going to go up, get them and sell them and, probably get drunk again. And when he goes up there to get the goods, yeah. So he goes up there to get the goods, and he doesn't ever come back. And the Utes tell people that they found him, they killed him because of his betrayal, but they still viewed him in the regards of a chief. They treated him as a chief, so he got a full burial. He was buried on a scaffold. So somewhere, Colorado Mountains, he was buried on a scaffold, and his bones may still be laying somewhere on the mountainside, but that was kind of the end of his demise. So it just goes to show, even though he did it for a lot of years, all those guys that went off running around doing stuff by themselves, a lot of them wound up the same way. They all got killed.
On their own thing.
Yep. Hell, even Jedediah Smith, he got killed going out by himself.
Yep. Jedediah Smith. The one that didn't get killed by himself was Lonesome Charlie Reynolds, but maybe he did still get killed.
No, he got killed. Got killed up at Little Bighorn, but he came close when he brought the word to Fort Laramie about the gold in the Black Hills. He was dodging hostile war parties.
Yep.
And so it was kind of surprising that he didn't get killed when he was off by himself. But yeah, old Bill Williams, that happened to him. There's several other guys that's what happened. They just went off and Didn't come back.
Hugh Glass.
Well, Hugh Glass, he was with 3 other guys that got killed.
The Rickera, yeah, the Rickera.
Yeah. So
still, if you told me 4 guys are out there by themselves, I still consider that being off by yourself.
Well, they weren't even out that far.
Yeah.
They were up at Fort Union in North Dakota. They had went out and they weren't very far away from the fort when they got killed.
Yeah. I guess he was alone, not by choice, most of the time.
Yeah, no, that was one of them. Yeah, he's had a lot of quarrels with the Rickeras. So yeah, there was the Rickeras attacked the Ashley party before he got mauled. He gets mauled. He goes back to Fort Kiowa. I think it's Fort Kiowa. Yeah.
And he fights Tom Hardy to the death, tooth and nail.
Oh God, that. You're gonna make me cuss in front of Mama Woods. So, and then there was another incident, and I think it was down here, pretty close to Fort Laramie, where he got chased by the Rickera again because they had apparently come out this far. It may have been a little further east, but anyway, and they survived by building bull boats and floating down the Platte River until they got far enough back east that they finally ran into another band of trappers. And then he goes up the Missouri and he gets to Fort Union, and he rides out with it's like 3 or 4 other guys, and they get ambushed by war party of Arikara and get killed. So that's the funny thing. Like the Arikara were around quite a bit, but the Hugh Glass thing is the only time that I've ever really seen much said about him being in the area.
You know, the one guy I can think who made it through, I think, if I remember right, John Coulter. He was by himself, and then he decided he was going home, and he stayed home.
Yeah. So John Coulter, he comes out with Lewis and Clark, stays out here by himself. Then he was probably with another guy when the Blackfeet made him run naked. Because the story goes, this is one of those that we don't have a lot of info on. There's a story that's in Give Your Heart to the Hawks, how they talk about how they completely dismembered his friend in a matter of minutes and shoved his genitals and shoved the dead man's genitals in John Coulter's face. But we do know that, he ran, basically he was chased down by another Indian. They had a little squabble, but he was forced to run naked. And he states that he prays to God that if God will let him survive, he'll leave the mountains and never return. And as he's leaving the mountains, he runs into another party of trappers, and they said, well, why don't you lead us around? Oh, sure. He comes back out to the mountains, gets into another scrap with the Indians.
He said, Lord, if you get me out of this, I'll leave this mountains and never return.
Yeah, if I survive this one, I'm definitely leaving, not coming back. And he leaves, and he does not come back.
And he dies an old man on his farm in Missouri.
And he wasn't even that old. He died in his 40s.
Well, that's old for a mountain man sometimes.
Yeah. He had a little farm in Missouri, and he died. He's 44 years old.
Didn't come back.
But, I think, that was after good Lord had blessed me a second time. I don't think I would have tempted him, would try to tempt him with a third.
Well, 3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah. It's kind of like that joke about the guy, Flood comes in and he's sitting on the roof of his house and he prays and prays for rescue, and this little guy in a canoe comes up, says, hey, you want to ride? No, God's gonna rescue me. And then a big boat comes along, said, need any help? No, good Lord's gonna rescue me. Then a helicopter flies over and says, yeah, we're here to fly you out. No, good Lord's gonna rescue me. And the guy drowns, gets to heaven, looks at God, and he says, God, I prayed for rescue. Why didn't you rescue me? God looks at him and says, I sent you a canoe, a boat, and a helicopter. What more did you want?
Exactly. I'm going to have to get out of here pretty quick. I got to go bale some hay.
Yeah. So we've gone more than an hour 45. So anyway, yeah, throw your last minute questions, comments, concerns up there. We'll run it for, can you make 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Snapper said, I could not imagine what it would be like to be in such an open space knowing you're being hunted.
He'd be hunted all the time. So what do you guys got coming out next for 11 Bang Bang?
Oh, this one's a doozy. It requires Ethan filming in the heat of actually in nighttime, wrapped in a sheet with a turban.
Oh, jeez.
You know what I'm talking, where I'm going, right? The camel
You're
gun.
finally doing that camel gun?
We're doing the camel gun. I don't think he did the turban thing, but I do know he did the sheet, and he spoke in Arabic that he had learned over there in Syria, and did. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It's hilarious. It's pretty.
He
good.
should have done the turban.
Yeah, I should have. He should have. But yes, the camel gun will be on at 7:30 Sunday morning.
Too bad he didn't have a camel.
Yeah, I was flat out surprised at how good that gun worked. It was a really good shooting gun. I mean, when you got a lock that's about 3 inches wide, and it's going to throw a lot of spark every time.
Requires a mule to cock it.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Deja Vu's in. Kodak Tackman said, see you, fellas. Snapper had the laughing. Oh, yeah, Snapper, you done some time in the Middle East. You will thoroughly enjoy Sunday's video. I guarantee it.
No, what he should have done is used it and done a Star Wars get-up. Put on some welding goggles, a mask, cover it with a turban, and stand out there and go,
done a Wookiee. No, not the Wookiee. What's the little guy?
The Tusken Raiders.
Yeah, or the little guys with the glowing red eyes.
Oh yeah, the not Ewoks.
Yeah, the Ewoks.
That's not the Ewoks on Tatooine. God, and I'm a Star Wars nut, and I can't even think of it. Jawas. The Jawas. Yeah. Houdini. But no, the Tusken Raiders are the one that carry the camel guns in that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know much about it, I guess.
Yeah.
I just know there's little guys in the desert with glowy red eyes that are scary.
Yeah, that's the Jawas, yeah.
But
well, Garrett, you should watch some more Star Wars.
Yeah, Mom said, Gina Wood said, if it looks like if the lock blew off, it would kill you. Well, it probably would, but hopefully that big lock don't blow off of there. So, you ready to shut her down? Yeah, so if we ain't got any last minute questions, comments, concerns, we're going to shut her off here for tonight. Thank everybody for coming on. Thank Garrett for setting this up again. Like I said, he's been pretty much channel manager here for a long time. So, anyways, we're gonna hopefully fix that someday soon. Yeah. So, join us here in a couple weeks. We'll try to have a topic. And then next week, I assume Garrett, you're gonna have a chat in the middle of the week as well. Yeah, it's not lined up yet, though, but I think Snapper was working on something, but it kind of fell through, so we'll work something out. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I'll probably be around next week for that. Yeah. So, but anyway, thank you all for joining. As always, stay tuned, keep your powder dry. Catch you next time.